Advocates are saying a change to Illinois' felony murder statute doesn't go far enough. The change was made by state lawmakers last January as part of the sweeping criminal justice reform. The law removes the possibility of prosecutors charging defendants with murder in cases when a third party, like the police or a homeowner, is responsible for the killing. But criminal justice advocates say the reform should have been made retroactive and are lobbying for further changes. A new report from Injustice Watch reveals felony murder laws have a disproportionate impact on young people of color and women. And joining us to discuss their reporting are Rita Oseguera, an Injustice Watch reporter who covers immigration, policing, and class equity, and Chloe Hillis, a reporting resident with Injustice Watch. Thanks to you both for joining us. Rita Oseguera, let's start with you, please. First, explain to us what felony murder is.
Yeah, thank you for having us, Brandy. So, felony murder is the rule states that when a person commits certain felonies and someone dies in the course of that felony, that person can be charged with first-degree murder, even if they didn't directly kill the person.
And the types of felonies you're referring to are sexual assault, robbery, burglary.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And Chloe, explain to us the reform. We just talked about it a minute ago in the intro, but the reform that went into effect, what happened there?
Yeah, so the reform is going to change the rules. So third-party felony murder, when someone not involved in the direct course of the felony, so a third party, maybe a homeowner or a police officer, if they're responsible for the killing, the felony murder rule isn't going to take place anymore for those defendants. But however, it still includes murders in the case of a defendant killing someone during the course of a felony. And those defendants, the co-defendants, can also be charged with felony murder still.
And so, Rita, what does that mean for the inmates then who are still incarcerated for felony murder?
So this reform that passed isn't retroactive. So that means that those who were involved in a case where a third party was involved, they cannot be resentenced. They don't have the means to be like, hey, this rule doesn't apply to me anymore. Can I be resentenced? And also those whose co-defendant killed someone during the course of the felony, they also are not, they don't apply to this reform as well.
And Rita, in your research, you spoke with some advocates who think that more should be done, and you cited a few other states where felony murder reform laws have gone farther. What would advocates like to see?
So advocates would like to see a lot more done. So they do want to have a rule put in for the reform where the co-defendants, that will be taken into consideration. So if their co-defendant was the one who killed someone during a felony, then they want to make sure that the other co-defendant, who was maybe a lookout and they didn't have an intent to cause any violence, then they shouldn't be charged with murder, especially since they didn't directly kill anyone.
So in your analysis, you also found that black men under the age of 25 years old made up 40% of people who were charged with felony murder, and that women made up 26% of people serving time for felony murder. That's compared with 5% of women imprisoned in murder charges overall. Chloe, what did you all learn about why felony murder disproportionately impacts young people and women?
Women with histories of domestic abuse often are going to encounter the criminal justice system. A recent study in Illinois shows that most women in Illinois prisons have experienced some sort of domestic violence or abuse. And now, what does this mean in terms of felony murder? Well, it can mean that they're in an abusive relationship and they're being manipulated or forced to go along with a crime that they don't want to commit. Or it can mean that they have less of an ability to say no when someone suggests conducting a crime due to their mindset because of their history of trauma and abuse.
And with regard to young people, Chloe, you also did some research about, the development of the brain and the prefrontal cortex. What did you learn there?
Yeah, young people are really susceptible to peer pressure and can be really influenced by the environment they grew up in. And these factors are what experts are saying are not being taken into an account when charging someone with a murder that they didn't commit.
And Rita, what did your research uncover about the role of law enforcement in some of these felony murder cases?
Yeah, so the role of law enforcement, so sometimes those are the third parties that are involved in the felony. So the experts are saying that it redirects the responsibility of the death to those who committed the felony instead of the officer. So if an officer is chasing someone and they accidentally shoot a bystander, then the person committing the felony can be charged with felony murder, or could have been charged, not anymore with the reform, but could have been charged with felony murder. So that is the issue that they were having, why the reform was put in place in the first place.
Right, and your research found that that is the case for some people who are incarcerated, that may have been a similar situation when they were charged and sent to prison. Before I let you go, Rita, advocates are asking legislators to remove this legislation altogether or to make much more significant changes. How likely is that?
That is completely up to legislators. We are not sure. Illinois has a history of not putting retroactive clauses into their legislation, but advocates they want to reassure people that they are not saying that the people don't deserve to go to prison for the crime they committed. They're saying they didn't deserve to go to prison for a murder that they didn't commit.
Okay, and Chloe, briefly explain to us how you all analyze the data, your methodology.
Yeah, so we received this data first from the Illinois Department of Corrections, using charges of murder or other forcible felony. We then went person by person, looking through news clippings, reading case summaries to determine if they were the person who directly killed someone, if it was a co-defendant, if it was a third party, and coding this, based on our findings from clippings. And what this didn't include were defendants who might have been convicted of another crime if they took a plea deal and got manslaughter. So our data is not actually complete for this reason, but the Illinois Department of Corrections doesn't track any felony murder charges. So this had to be done by hand by us.
Got it. Thank you so much for joining us from Injustice Watch, Rita Oseguera and Chloe Hillis.
Thank you for having us.